Get ready, get set, go! Welcome back, everyone, to another special episode. Today, I have another race episode for you. This last weekend, as I mentioned in my previous videos, I ran the Brooklyn Half Marathon. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. This is kind of, I've never actually ran in Brooklyn before, so this was very new to me. I've been to some of these areas before, but I don't go to Brooklyn a ton. Plan to do more runs over there, obviously. So this was a lot of new scenery for me for running. So let's go talk about it for a little bit more. Real quickly, before I talk about the Brooklyn Half Marathon, I want to talk about an amazing organization that I've been bringing up all this time, and that's New York Roadrunners and their Team for Kids, or NYRR for short. NYRR goes beyond running. It's a community that unites and uplifts people. They organize big events like the New York City Marathon to promote health, personal growth, and education for kids all over the world. Team for Kids is a group of athletes who come together to raise money for NYRR's youth programs. These programs help over 250,000 kids every year, giving them free fitness and wellness classes to build healthy habits early on. I'm excited to run this year's marathon to support Team for Kids, and I need your help to make a big difference. Every donation keeps these important programs going. Join me to help NYRR reach every kid who wants to grow through sports. Let's work together to bring health, confidence, and happiness to kids everywhere. Check out the link in the description to find out more. Together, we can change lives. And thank you so much for watching this video and supporting me through all this entire time. Seriously, could not ask for better. So, back to the Brooklyn Half Marathon. As kind of like a little precursor, though, I wanted to mention that although it might sound like I'm talking kind of negative about this race and this experience I had with it, I kind of want everyone to take that with a bit of salt, because overall I really did enjoy the race. But I think in the beginning, especially, was kind of a bit stressful. I'll go into that. But it might just sound like I'm talking a little bit more harshly about this race, but still really enjoyed it. Still had a blast running it. So getting to the race. This race was kind of a little bit different than most organized races like that, and that's because normally they have kind of like a bag check in for all the runners, so that they can bring a change of shoes or a change of clothes or jackets and stuff like that, and water, and then they check it into where usually either they start or they finish. That way the runners can have it post race kind of thing. But this Brooklyn Half Marathon was kind of strange because it did have a bag check, but it had a bag check in the race expo area, and not actually at the race itself. So you kind of had to drop it off at a civic location beforehand to when you picked up your running bib, and then leave it over there for a couple days, and then you had to go back there after the race to pick it up. So it kind of wasn't really useful as a bag check. But whatever, it wasn't terrible, because basically what that just means for me is that I needed to show up to the race wearing everything that I was going to use for the race. So kind of wear my race shoes and shorts and shirts and my GoPro camera. Another stressful thing about this race is that it was in Brooklyn, so it required me to wake up a little earlier than normal, and also required me to take trains that I'm not super familiar with. I had to take the G train, which most New Yorkers will say is the worst train in all the subway system. It's super unreliable, doesn't follow its schedule, always stops randomly, and just kind of runs really slow. So it's kind of annoying that I had to rely on that train to get me there. I was already running very late for my designated wave and corral that I was supposed to run with. I wasn't even sure that they were even going to let me run, because on the website it seemed if you missed your time, that was kind of it. But not only was the train kind of annoying, but because of the race itself, there were some road closures that just kind of you couldn't get off the normal stop to get closest to the starting line. You had to get off at a stop further away and then walk to the starting line. So that was also kind of annoying and put more stress on me, because again, I was running late again. And then on top of all that, again, since I was planning to record this thing, I was wearing my GoPro on my chest like normal, but on the website it seemed like they weren't letting anything else besides water belts go through security, so I was a little scared that I wouldn't even be allowed to run because of my GoPro chest mount. But I was like, let's risk it. Worst they can say is no, that I can't run, or that I have to call somebody up quick to hand them my GoPro so I can run the race, and then just not record it. But luckily that wasn't a problem. Luckily the security to get through to the race wasn't even that bad. Just took off everything and just walked through the middle of the sector. No one even batted an eye. It was that luckily went down without a hitch. Another thing that kind of was very unfortunate about this race is that I was still dealing with some sort of cold or flu that just was stuck with me for 2 weeks almost. Actually, I'm still sick right now, but luckily I'm not coughing up a storm or have stuffed nose problems. But for this race, I did have a very, very runny stuffed nose, and also was having pretty big coughing fits. So every 2-ish miles, I had to stop and just was coughing up a lung for a couple seconds, which in the end really did hurt my overall time. But it was something I kind of was I felt like I could push through because it didn't always affect me, and it kind of affected me randomly. I couldn't always predict it. But it did suck before the race. I was trying to find some tissue to blow my nose so I didn't have this problem. But there was no toilet paper in any of the bathrooms I went to, and it sucked because I was like, well, okay, just going around this race now with the super stuffed nose. But it was, I didn't die. That's the good part. But finally, I got over all the problems that I was having before the race, and I was actually just now starting to hit the race. And as most of these races, the beginning of the races, there's just tons of people. Everyone's kind of starting at the same line and kind of crowded. So the first 3 miles are just spent just kind of dodging people and kind of, trying to keep your pace to, not run on anyone over or get run over yourself if anyone's passing you. Yeah, for the first couple miles, it was nice because it was in an area of Brooklyn that I hardly ever go to. So it was a lot of new sights, new buildings, new streets. It was a lot of fun. But then I kind of got closer to the second park, Prospect Park. So it kind of got into more area in which I was familiar with Brooklyn. So in the video, you kind of see me running by the Brooklyn Library. I also ran by the Brooklyn Museum. So kind of that area of the Grand Army Plaza area of Prospect Park, which are also all beautiful buildings. Don't get me wrong. That's a very nice part of Brooklyn. But the sun was out. It was super sunny, super warm, not too hot, luckily. So you got a good sweat going on, but you weren't overheating. It wasn't windy, so you weren't cold. So you didn't have to wear a bunch of layers. I honestly love running in that type of weather. Also just made the area just gorgeous because you got close to the parks, because parks in the sun, of course, gorgeous, chef's kiss. We actually finished in Prospect Park, which is very nice because we got maybe the last half mile running on Parks Street, which was gorgeous because a lot of greenery opposed to the streets running. But yeah, and like I mentioned before earlier, finish the race, I actually finished slower than my first half marathon in this video series, finishing at 2 hours and 20 minutes ish, at a pace about 10:46. So about actually pretty close to, I think actually right on the dot of running a minute slower than I did in my previous one. But it might sound like an excuse, but I'm just going to chalk that up to still being sick, so dealing with stuff. Also, I think another one of my problems that I need to work on is I'm getting used to doing these long runs, but not I still have to function as a human after these long runs, so I don't burn myself out. And I think for race days and for some of these other runs, I kind of gotta get used to just selling out. So I'll be working on that. But kind of end on kind of a funny note with this run is that after the run, it was kind of cool. They let us into this cool little area where they were going to do some concert shows and stuff like that. And you walk in, you get your post run bagel and apple like you do with every one of these runs. And I'll tell you what, nothing tastes better than a post run apple. I don't like apples normally, but post run apples slap. I can just devour those in 4 bites. But being that I hardly ever go to Prospect Park, we ran to the middle of Prospect Park, and I ended up getting actually lost because I didn't know where I was and I didn't have cell phone data service. So I just kind of was well, I'm just going to walk in the line until I get outside of the park. And luckily that did happen. and I was able to find where I was and get on the subway station and go to where I actually know how to get home. But it was funny. I thought it was amusing to get lost inside of a park inside of a city. But yeah, so that was the Brooklyn Half Marathon. Let me know what you guys think. Again, just want to quick shout out my socials. Macho Marathon Man. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, here on YouTube, of course. But thank you again for watching, everyone. Again, shout out to New York Roadrunners and their Team for Kids. Hopefully, you guys can help me fundraise. Click link in the description. Thank you guys so much. Bye.